All right, let's just dive right in. Today, we're talking about a discovery that completely flips the script on everything we thought we knew about prehistoric America. It's an incredible story that was buried for 8,000 years in a Florida pond, and it reveals a civilization that was way more advanced than we ever imagined.
It all kicks off with this really chilling moment. Back in 1984, a totally routine construction project stumbled onto something that wasn't just old, it was preserved with a kind of precision that just seems to defy science. It was a discovery that would literally stare back at us from across an unimaginable gulf of time.
Okay, so let's set the scene. You're in Florida. It's a seemingly ordinary day when the ground itself decides it's time to give up a secret it had been holding on to since the last ice age. So you've got this guy, a backhoe operator named Steve Vanderjagt, and he hits something in the muck of Windover Pond. At first he thinks, okay, it's a rock. But when he realized it was a human skull, the immediate thought was, oh no, this is a crime scene. What he couldn't possibly have known was that this crime was 80 centuries old. So this raises a huge question, right? How on earth could human remains, and especially soft tissue, survive for 8,000 years in a warm, wet Florida bog? It just shouldn't be possible. Well, the answer lies in the unique chemistry of the pond itself. It acted like a perfect natural time capsule. It turns out Windover Pond was this total geological fluke. Its bottom was lined with a super thick layer of peat, which created what's called an anaerobic or oxygen-free environment. See, without oxygen, the bacteria and the little microbes that cause things to decay, they just can't function. The pond essentially created a chemical stasis field, pressing pause on the entire process of decay. And get this, the evidence shows the Windover people knew exactly what they were doing. They weren't just tossing their dead in the water. They were intentionally anchoring them in this peat, almost like they were placing them in a safe place for eternity. And this process didn't just preserve bones. It preserved something that was previously thought to be absolutely impossible. So as archaeologists began to carefully drain the pond, the sheer scale of this discovery became clear. One skull turned into 10, then 50, until they had uncovered the remains of 168 different people, an entire community, men, women, and children, just waiting there in the dark. And this is the moment that absolutely stunned the scientific world. Inside nearly 100 of those skulls was preserved brain tissue. Yeah, you heard that right. Shrunken, sure, but structurally intact. An 8,000-year-old human brain, something that should have turned to liquid within just a few days of death. Now, this wasn't just some morbid curiosity. This was a scientific jackpot. For the first time ever, we had a direct biological link to people who lived at the dawn of human civilization in the Americas. It was like opening a window we never ever thought was possible to look through. You see, that soft tissue held the ultimate prize, DNA. Scientists were able to extract the oldest human DNA ever found in North America, giving us a direct genetic blueprint of a people who walked the earth thousands of years before the pyramids were even a dream. And that genetic blueprint, combined with all the artifacts buried right alongside them, started to tell a totally new story. It's a story that just completely shatters that old stereotype we have of ancient people as these simple, primitive hunters. We all have that picture in our heads, don't we? We imagine people from this era as simple nomads, totally focused on survival and not much else. But the evidence from Windover Bog, well, it paints a profoundly different picture. And right here, you can see the huge disconnect between the myth and the reality. The Windover people weren't just surviving, they were thriving. This was a complex, settled society. They had sophisticated technology, incredible artistry, and deeply meaningful rituals. For example, archaeologists found over 80 different types of textiles preserved in that peat. And these weren't just crude rags. These were fabrics woven with 7 distinct and complex patterns, some as finely crafted as textiles from the Iron Age, thousands of years later. These people were artisans of the highest order. But as incredible as their technology was, the most profound revelation from Windover doesn't tell us about what they could make, but about who they were. It speaks right to the very heart of their society. I want you to consider this number, 15. It's the age of a young boy whose skeleton was found among all the others. And his story, well, it changed everything we thought we knew about these people. Analysis showed this boy had spina bifida, a really severe condition he was born with. He would have been unable to walk or care for himself. Now, in a brutal survival of the fittest world, he wouldn't have lasted a week. And yet, he lived for 15 years. This is undeniable proof of a deeply compassionate society that valued and cared for its most vulnerable members. So when you put it all together, the technology, the art, the compassion, and the incredible age of this site, you just have to redraw the map of human history. To truly grasp their antiquity, just look at this timeline. The Windover community was already ancient history when the first stone was laid at Giza. They're separated from the pyramid builders by the same vast gulf of time, 3,000 years, that separates those builders from us today. It's just staggering. Let that sink in for a second. We search for lost empires like Atlantis, but one of the most sophisticated ancient societies we have ever found was waiting for us right under our feet in a Florida housing development. The Windover people are proof that complex societies didn't just spring up in the Middle East. They were a pinnacle of human culture, a civilization with art, technology, and compassion that history simply forgot to write down. And that's really why this matters so much. Those 8,000-year-old brains are more than just a scientific marvel. They are a mirror. They reflect a humanity that looks surprisingly familiar, showing us that love, creativity, and empathy have always been at the core of who we are. The discovery at Windover Pond proves that history is not a settled story, but a living, breathing mystery. And it leaves us with a fascinating question. If a society this complex could be lost and completely forgotten for 8,000 years, what other wonders are still buried out there, just waiting for us to find them?